Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. So in today's head-to-head comparison, we are going to take a look at two G-Wagons. We have the all-new 2024 Lexus GX550 and the latest generation for the Mercedes Benz G Wagon. Now, I've borrowed both of these vehicles from two different dealerships. I'll have their links down in the description below, so that way you can check them out. Both of these are luxury-focused, boxy, and off-road capable SUVs that have quite a lot to offer. However, there's a huge price discrepancy between both of these SUVs. So we have a lot to cover in today's full comparison. So let's start off with the Lexus GX550, which has a starting MSRP right around $64,000. There's also 6 different trim levels for the GX to put that MSRP up to the mid $70,000 range. For the Mercedes Benz, there are 2 different models. There's the G550 and the G63. MSRP starts at $144,000 and climbs from there with options. Now, as we work our way to the GX550, this is powered by only one engine. This has the 3.4 liter twin turbo V6. It's paired to a 10-speed automatic, and it produces 349 horsepower, 479 pound-feet of torque. And then over on the G-Wagon, even with the 2 different trim levels, it utilizes the same engine. So there's a 4-liter twin-turbo V8 paired to a 9-speed. Horsepower is going to vary between 416 and 577, with torque at 450 or a 627. So just depending on the G550 or the G63 AMG. Now for the GX, this is all-wheel drive. It weighs in around 5,600 pounds. 0 to 60 is going to be in 6.5 seconds. And as far as the off-road capabilities go, we have an approach angle of 26 degrees, breakover angle is 24, departure angle is 22, and its ground clearance measures in at 8.9 inches. Now over on the G-Wagon, this is also all-wheel drive, weighs in right around 5,800 pounds. 0 to 60 can happen in as quick as 4.5 seconds. This has an approach angle of 26.7, breakover is 25.7, departure is 29.2, and ground clearance is 9.5. So slightly more. However, we do have the exit exhaust, or the side exit exhaust there, which can hinder your ground clearance slightly. And then as far as towing goes, we have right around 8,000 pounds and 7,000 pounds for the G-Wagon. So pretty comparable there. And with those specs out of the way, let's take a look at the exterior styling now for both of these boxy SUVs. On the Lexus, it still retains that hourglass design. So we have those points right here within the grille. There's parking sensors up front. There's the sensor for the distance pacing, forward-facing camera. LEDs, of course. There's also fog lights in that lower section. For the G-Wagon, very distinctive front end with the grille along with the circular headlight design. There's the bash bar up front, which most G-Wagons do have. Parking sensors as well, forward-facing camera, and the sensor too. And then with the G-Wagon, we do have turn signals, which are mounted on the top of the hood there, basically, which is a very iconic design for the G-Wagon. There's also very distinctive lines running down the Lexus hood. And then on the G-Wagon, the hood actually comes in, very narrow point there on the top to allow those turn signals to be on both sides. So they each have their own boxy design to it. I think both look really, really nice. Now, of course, with both of these vehicles, there are several different options that you can go with. So this is the wheel and brake setup for these current models. We have the AMG brakes on the G-Wagon, standard brakes. Really nice wheel option though for both of these. You'll notice too that the G-Wagon has the fender flares that poke out a little bit more. We have a very flush design for the Lexus. There's also a turn signal and a camera for the mirrors. We have the camera underneath and the turn signal for the GX. Now, as we take a look at the overall side design, you can't mistake the G-Wagon. Very boxy. There's also the rain channels that are up on the roof here. So that way when you open up the door, the rain will drip outwards, allowing no rain, of course, to get in. But we have very squared off windows as well. For the GX550, a little bit more on that luxury style, even though it is boxy, we do have some more curved lines to it. There's a roof rack up top. There's also a sunroof too. And then for this G-Wagon, let's take a look. We have a small sunroof as well there. So a little bit more flowing design to the boxy look for the Lexus versus a lot more squared off lines for the G-Wagon. Now in back for this Lexus, we do have the window up top that you can open up separately. So you can quickly do this. you can gain access to the third row, which is currently folded down. You have some adjustments for that. And then we have that LED light bar, backup camera, sensors, the area to tow. Over on the G Wagon, we have a huge difference because the spare tires in the back and the entire liftgate is one piece, and it opens up towards the driver's side, allowing you access to your cargo there. And then we have the LEDs, which are in the lower section there. There's a backup camera, sensors, and then the hitch is exposed where it was covered on the GX. Now let's work our way to the interior. So for this particular GX, we have a nice interior, really nice materials. There's leather too, plenty of storage in that lower section. We have the automatic seats. I do have a full detailed review on this specific GX. So if you want to see everything in greater detail, take a look at that separate video, as well as the G Wagon. I'm going to go over this fairly quickly today since I have those full reviews. But for the Lexus, we have a nice interior. All of the controls that you need on the steering wheel. There's paddle shifters as well. We have memory seating adjustments. You can open up the liftgate there. There's also the digital gauge cluster, where you can go through 3 different customizable screens. And then you have information on the left and the right that you can also configure. So you can go through quite a lot on the right, middle, and the left side to pull up all of that information. We get a head-up display, really large infotainment system. You don't have too much technology, but it's nice with the info that you can go through. You have some off-road information as well. And then all of your climates are within the screen to go through all this information. You even have some favorites as well that you can get into and adjust the rear from up front here. There's also a few different driving modes, so you can go through those as needed, depending on what you're doing for the day. There's a tow and haul mode. You have your second gear here, so you can start up in second if you're towing, things like that. We have an auxiliary, there's wireless charging. Here's a look at the backup camera. There's also your 4-low center locking differential that you can use. We have the glove box there, or the armrest, along with the glove box, a little bit of storage up top as well. And then the sunroof there. And here's a quick look at visibility from the driver's seat. So even with the boxy design, a little bit longer there, you can still see over both shoulders. I go over all of that, of course, in the full detailed review. And now as we work our way to the G Wagon, we have a different design, of course, to enter. And then for this model, a little bit more bold with the solid red interior. There's carbon fiber accents, the Burmester audio, all the brushed aluminum. You get heated and ventilated seats for this model, all the memory seating adjustments. And then as we hop inside, you have a very distinctive door click there when you shut this off. So for this interior, as you can tell, it is a bit different. We have a lot more materials like the carbon fiber. We have all of the leather. Really nice layout, paddle shifters, all of these controls here for your cruise, your phone, just like you saw on the GX model. We do have the center infotainment system here, the gauge cluster, where you can go through a little bit more. So it is a little bit more configurable as far as the information that you can go through and the different screen layouts that you can go into as well. So pretty easy to go through all of that. We have headlights, you have some safety features, there's one air vent there, no head-up display for this model. And then for the infotainment system, you do have to use the controls down below. So you can further go through all of this and get through all this information. It's not all that hard to get used to, but you have this trackpad here that you can also use, kind of like some of the previous Lexus models that had that pad that you could use your finger here. So you can quickly get through all of that information. Now, the biggest difference is that this model has 3 locking differentials. You have the front, you have the center, and you have the rear. So you can configure those as needed for those G-Wagon owners that want to take this off the pavement. We have some brushed aluminum there, all the climate adjustments. There's also physical buttons for that screen up top, so you can use that. There's cup holders down below. You also have a lot of driving modes here, so you can go through several different driving modes depending on what you'd like to put it in. We have the manual settings, suspension settings, exhaust note. There's also a low range gear, and then you have your camera system as well. So we have the stock in order to put this into reverse, and then we have the rest of that, of course, there. You have a split design with a similar amount of storage. There's also the glove box too. No storage above that, but you get a grab handle there, and then full Alcantara for the entire headliner. And then I will say it might be a little bit shorter just because there's no third row option, but it looks like you can still see over both shoulders there. And then we have the handle, which is a little bit lower, and that distinctive click that is really only known to the G Wagon here. Well, let's move on to the rear, where you do have the exhaust on the sides there, so you just have to be mindful of that. But as far as space goes for the G Wagon, at 5'10", it's pretty nice. I have plenty of room for my feet and my legs. I have 4 or 5 inches of headroom, which is nice. We have some climates, some temperature adjustments, a little bit of storage down below. And then you do have the armrest along with cup holders there. And it's pretty nice. It's pretty short in the back there, so the rear tire there is actually pretty close. But other than that, backseat room is very spacious. And as we work our way to the GX now, we have a nice interior, a little bit more on the simple side, especially when you compare it to that red. There's a few options that you can go with. Now, as far as the seating goes, at my height, I have about 3 or 4 inches, so slightly less, but still plenty of room. There's storage pockets, you get heated rear seats, and then all of these adjustments here with some auxiliaries. We have the armrest and cup holders, and then it's much farther back to that back glass, obviously for the room in the back there. Now, in order to get into the back, we can just pull on this lever here, and then the seat is going to pop up. And obviously you don't get this on the G Wagon, but we do have the automatic adjustments to put this seat up. Now, there's only 2 seats in the back, and you'll notice the bottom pop out, and the seat is up and ready to go. So you do get that third row option if you need it for 2 additional people, which is nice, especially for this style of vehicle. Now, the only drawback is they are automatic, so you have to do that, and then the second row there is manual. Now let's take a look at the cargo space, since we have the power lift gate for the GX, where with the seats down, you have plenty of space. With them up, it's going to be limited slightly, but you still have plenty of room for that third row. A little bit of storage, not really a whole lot under the floor if you have that third row up, but it's what you would expect with that third row down. And then there's the button up top to quickly close it. Now, if we come back to the G Wagon, we do have a little bit shorter of an area here. Covers right there, seats are literally right there. So not quite as practical for the huge price difference with the G Wagon there. So you have a lot more practicality with the GX. But nonetheless, we have 2 very popular boxy luxury off-roading SUVs. Probably won't see the dirt that often, but 2 great options to go with. Now let's get both of these out on the road and see how they drive. So as we start off behind the wheel of the GX550 now, this is a really cool SUV that Lexus has come out with, and it is in high demand. This is a demo model here, so it has quite a lot of miles on it, so that way some customers can really take a look at this vehicle and see what it has to offer. Now, if we give it an acceleration here, it has plenty of power to get this SUV up to speed. So that was a mild acceleration, and we have no issues. Now, of course, you can use the paddle shifters if you would like to, which in a vehicle like this, you may not be using quite as much. Maybe for towing, if you happen to take it off the pavement, they are there, and it just gives you a little bit more of that exciting factor to it. So if we downshift, coming around this turn here, we can give another acceleration with the paddles, and they're pretty responsive. It sounds pretty good too for this engine, not having any kind of aftermarket exhaust, or louder exhaust, I should say. It is something that is a more comfortable, laid back, relaxing luxury ride. Suspension is very nice too, so it absorbs bumps very well. And it's a pretty quiet SUV. I've had a lot of seat time in the GX550, just doing some reviews, and it's very nice. I like how high up you sit. You can see both sides of the hood there, so you can easily place this too. It's not that big of an SUV where it's going to be hard to park either. So it's been pretty easy to drive and maneuver in the situations that I've been in. But it's very nice. I like the technology that is available. It's not overboard. Everything is pretty easy to use. We do have some technology features there. but everything's laid out well. I know a lot of people don't like the fact that kind of Toyota and Lexus are behind in the technology world, but they give you what you need. They make it simple, effective, and I think it's a great layout for that. But as far as driving it goes, it's definitely nice. So if you're looking for that boxy-ish style and you want a little bit of added luxury, we even have some leather material or some kind of material here on the dash. A little bit of plastic maybe right here that's covered. But other than that, for the money, it's definitely a great option to go with. But let's swap over now to the G and see what that's like. And behind the G Wagon now we are in the G63. The G550s don't seem to be as easily accessible or available to see. I see a lot more of the G63. So obviously we have a lot more power in this specific G Wagon, but if we were in the G550, the horsepower is going to be a little bit more. Torque is not quite as much as in the GX550. So honestly, with the numbers of a twin turbo V6 and the V8, they're going to be very, very similar. You just have a lot more of an expensive vehicle with the Mercedes G Wagon, but this is what it's like to be behind the wheel. The windshield is definitely much closer. The hood kind of disappears over on that passenger side, but I can see the turn signal on that passenger side as well. But we have a pretty narrow dashboard here, kind of similar to a Jeep Wrangler if you've ever been behind the wheel, or the Ford Bronco, kind of very short and narrow like that. But with the G63, we have a much louder exhaust, which you can turn on and off. That was actually off, so we can actually make it louder. And then we have those various settings to go into. But it's going to drive very similar to the GX as far as the riding position, how high up you are. And then being a Mercedes Benz, you get that luxury vibe. So not a lot of road noise, wind noise. Visibility is easy to see. I will say with the G Wagon, one thing that's cool to note is that the spare tire looks like it's off-centered to give you more visibility on one side versus the other, rather than having it center where you have a narrow spot on both sides. I can easily see that very small sedan behind me with that tire placement. So I think that's a great design with the spare tire being exposed on the back. But very nice. I mean, we have a lot more tech features than in the Lexus, of course. A little bit different layout, but it's nice. So if you want that iconic G Wagon, it does way more. This is a vehicle that is something that a lot of people write off, which is why they go for the G Wagon, because of its weight, tax write-offs, things like that. You see a lot of people buying these for those purposes, but if just in general, it's a really nice vehicle to drive. Used market, they're still going to be expensive, but if you have the money, if money wasn't a problem between the two, the G Wagon is cool, but the GX550 is also more practical in the fact that you have that third row too. It's something a little bit more daily driver, I think. Yeah, you can absolutely daily drive this G Wagon here. The storage in the back just isn't quite as much. But it's definitely a fun vehicle to drive, especially with the V8 and that exhaust note. It's got a good, healthy sound to it. And so back from the test drive now with the GX550, the G550/G63. Both of these are very fun to drive. I can see why each of them are very popular. This boxy style for these luxury SUVs is starting to become a little bit more of a popular thing in these vehicles. A lot of people really like the designs of them and also what they have to offer. Now keep in mind, the Mercedes Benz is going to have more technology. The brand just has more tech features versus the Lexus model. However, if you're not looking for all of those added luxuries and some of that tech, the GX is definitely a great way to go, something that I might be interested in buying at some point. I'm not a techie person to get all of that, but it is cool, especially with the G Wagon. It's a very iconic Mercedes Benz SUV. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the price discrepancy, obviously you're not really going to be cross-shopping these simply because it's about 2.5 times more expensive for a G Wagon. Even on the used market, these are still going for well into the 6-figure mark. So if you're basically looking for a mini G Wagon, you can get into the GX550 versus the G550 and pretty much get something equivalent to it. You only have one engine option though, so you don't have quite as much power if you want a little bit more performance that the G Wagon has to offer. But honestly, both are great options. I thought it'd be cool to test them out since the GX550 is a brand new SUV from Lexus, and we have the boxy-ish kind of same design with the iconic G Wagon. So comment down below, price aside, which model are you going to take? G Wagon or the baby G there? But I hope you enjoyed today's video. Give it a huge thumbs up. Consider smashing that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our daily uploads. I will see you all in the next video.